Hello and welcome back to Jeffwalkerbooks discussion. Today, I'm just here to talk about stories and flash fiction and just generally the writing community at large. And this is kind of like an informal topic, I suppose. Like all my other ones, they're pretty on the fly, if you will. Now, I don't know if you can hear it outside, but it's raining. And, but that's how it is here on this beautiful beginning of November. Where am I in terms of book writing and, how I was doing in contests and just a general update on certain things? Well, first off, let me just say that, it's been a little bit of a low time for me, writing wise. It's just been, I don't know how to describe it. It's just been, I've been a little let down by a few of the contests where they've gone for me. And that's generally not in any targeted for any personal, well, I mean, it's personal to me because it's my books, right? But, readership has been low. I've had one review of one that's been in the Spiffo X, and one that didn't even rate it, so I didn't get that full rating for that either. So, I mean, on one hand, it's disappointing to me, generally. I mean, I've advertised this book as much as I can for free because I don't have the funds to keep funneling back into the advertisements for it. I guess it would do well if I did an audio version, which probably would have done a little bit more if there was more available. But I mean, I've got it on ebook, I've got it on, I've got them on, just print paperbacks, hardcovers. Other than the audio not being done, I haven't been able to sign any copies or give away real copies because, again, that's a cost to me. And sure, if I was, not somebody that had a family to look after, sure, maybe I'd have that extra income to provide for that, but I don't. And the only way to get a copy is through the Amazon and through a print company that it's linked to. But I can give away e-copies, and I've openly said that if anybody wants an e-copy to read and review, they're more than likely to, you can. I will give you an e-copy. But I've handed out so many over the months that I haven't got anything back. Now, whether or not they're just not reading it or they haven't read it yet, but I mean, it's been some time and it gets you a bit worried about what book am I talking about? I'm talking about The Burning Fire Rises, which is probably more my lesser knowns, I guess, but I mean, they're already out there. I have book 0. If anybody wants to go and read what Professor Dark and Miss Shadow is like, that's sort of like the precursor to the first book. Now, the first book was done in a way that I guess might have hurt it a little bit by putting it into Spiffbo. And now that I'm wondering about that, because I said it is fantasy. It is a fantasy type book, but the consensus of two of these critics, or two of the readers for the contest, said that they didn't like that it was being done through an FBI agent's eyes. It was fantastical in some aspects, but it was too down to earth. It's just an FBI agent that's trying to investigate the weird doings of the paranormal and stuff like that. But he's more grounded in his way of thinking. Now, I guess because the humor was a bit tongue-in-cheek in there, some people didn't like that, which kind of makes me wonder about that, because I sat there and went, well, who doesn't like, a bit of some comedy in their books. If it gets too serious, then if it's too serious, I can't take it serious. But then again, that's the reader's right. I haven't really heard a whole lot back, so I can't get a general feel of what this book is like. I've had a lot of people take copies, a lot of general comments online, maybe. But yeah, the sales for that book were not good, and I don't know how else to describe them. The book is fine to me. I love the book. I love all my books. And I think each one is unique in its own way. And I find that when people do read them, they do find them more in speed of what they would, like. They're generally well liked. Whether or not they're original or a sort of mixture that are being really brought up to the pedestal sometimes in some of these contests. Probably not. I probably haven't taken it to the edge of where some of them like to go, or mixed enough to make it unique on its own, I guess. So it's strange to me because, yeah, I do write a lot more science fiction than I do fantastical. But I mean, generally, even the short stories of Professor Darkman's Shadow, the collective book, and even like some of the audios, they've done fairly well. So I can't say that it's not the story or the material. It's more likely the general audience that keeps getting targeted to. I guess I'm just not targeting to the right people. Who can say? Every time anybody's read my book, they've had generally no real qualms, other than a few that have just shut the thing down without really reading the book, because I can tell they haven't read the book. They've only based it on a few lines or however they read it. But that's their right to criticize. That's their right to tell people. But I mean, I'd really want a more honest answer and not so much specific on to me as a person, as some of them tend to do. They take this opportunity to trash a writer for personal reasons. I don't see the need for that. If you disagree with the book, take it on the book, but don't take it on the writer as a whole. And so what I'm just trying to get at here is just that, okay, so the book didn't do well. Fair enough. And that's kind of put me in a downward spiral for a little bit. So the book didn't do well. I can accept that. It's just that put a downward spiral for me. So I got a little depressed about that. And that's what happens when writers don't get the support they want, or they don't get the readership they want. And I know that a lot of writers, when they don't see a whole lot of sales, they get depressed. And I see that all the time, talking on the threads and Discord and stuff. I've seen some writers just up and say, well, that's it, I'm done, I'm walking away. Not me. It puts me in a bit of a mood, but then some days I just don't feel like writing. And I know there's book writers out there that are just constant. When they have the support, they write books. I've noticed that with a lot of them. Byrne especially, when his books start to climb in the charts, or they get more readership, he's on it. He's writing the next book. He's on to the next thing. He's committed, and I have nothing but praise for that man. He's doing pretty well for himself. He's found a niche between science fiction and fantasy, using a superhero as part of that, and more power to him. He's stuck to a theme, and he's doing it. I wish I could be more like that, though. I tend to write non-serial books. I tend to be like this one-off every single time. Or I want to be a serial writer. That's why I said when I was doing Professor Darkman's Shadow, I was trying to write them as a serial books of like uh, just trying to get them into like like book after book after book. When I first did it, they were all short stories, much like Outer Red. Outer Red was a short story, and then I wrote another short story and another short story, and then I combined them into one book, which was pretty much like chapter one of this whole thing. And it works for me when I do it in stints. When I do novellas, I'm trying to break out of that. I wrote Your Service is Required. That was a full-on book that I wrote all the way through. It took a while, but I did it. And I really targeted that book for just generally a science fiction idea that I couldn't let go. Same goes for The Long Lost War. I wrote that one good stint, even though that was a novella. It was meant to be like that because that was all out of my mind. The Jungle Planet. Ooh, that took a lot out of me, big time. That was a labor of love for me for that book, because originally I was going to write it as a short story, and then it blossomed into this book. And the characters are exactly how I imagined it. From beginning to end, that's exactly how I envisioned the story. Might be tweaked in some places where I backtracked and put in a few chapters. But generally, when I write books, it's how they are. That's how I envisioned them. So I know some people have said I've got like a cinematic way of looking things, and that's true. Movies, books, they do influence you. When I dream at night, when I dream stories up, I dream them as movies or TV shows. From beginning to end, I know all the characters, I know how they're supposed to behave, I know the plot details, how they're all supposed to go. Sure, I'll modify it here and there, and the vision in my mind sometimes doesn't exactly come out the way I thought it would in the way I wrote it, but I do my best, and I've already had a lot of compliments saying this could be just adapted into a movie, which is great. This is exactly how I wanted it to be. And that's just my style of writing. I don't think enough people give me enough go on what I'm trying to bring them. I think a lot of people have certain expectations that are just not easy to meet. And in this day and age, there's a lot going on. People want certain tropes, certain characters. They want certain genders. And I hate using politics in books. And I hate generalization of, oh, you're a man, so I shouldn't, it's just like, get out of that way of thinking. You can't enjoy anything with that way of thinking. I understand that people are going to love or hate whatever. But at the same time, if you give it a shot and you don't like it, at least, you gave it a shot. I give things a shot. I tried to give some Star Wars books a shot, but I generally don't like the new books. And it's just the way they're written, the way that they're told is just not right. TV shows are starting to be like that now. Movies are starting to be like that now, where, the writing suffers. And I try to be consistent in my writing for the most part. And I've never really had a complaint about my overall writing as the book, as the story. The story to them is solid. Some say otherwise, and that's their right to say, but I've got a majority of people say, this is how I envisioned it, you did it great. And I would agree. I do like to toot my own horn. What writer wouldn't toot their own horn on their book? So yeah, I've kind of sidetracked a bit. I started getting back into my flash fiction stories, which I'm still writing and collecting, trying to put in as many as I can before I can publish that, as sort of like a midway publishing novel, I guess, so that I can at least get something out there, that I have many stories that I can share and put out. I've put out a lot, to be honest with you. I've had a lot of, I've got like a couple of full novels, but a lot of novellas and a lot of short stories. So I've done a lot. I've written a lot. There's so many. That's probably why I've got like not a whole lot of followers, because I haven't been consistent, I suppose, for like serial novels. And I think that's probably why a lot of people follow certain writers, because they have certain books that they write, one right after the other. And yes, I understand. That is probably what's killing me too, because I have so many different books. But that's who I am. I enjoy a variety of stories. I don't just stick to one. I have to have many. I'm trying to get out of that. Well, I'm trying to get back into it. I am trying to finish up a novel for The Massive Planet, the sort of sequel prequel book that takes place like a few years before they set off out of the solar system. It's kind of like a little bit of a backtrack. And I kind of started doing another book after the fact from the Massive Planet incident. So I'm trying to get back on track on those, trying to get back into writing those and get those books out there for that. I did want to make a sequel to The Long Lost War, but I'm just not there in that mindset. I've written maybe about 60% of that book already, but I haven't been tacking away at it like I should, so that book's on hold for now. I've been really trying to get back into Space Rockers, which I've been touting that I was going to have last year, and then now it's this year, and now it might be next year. Who knows? It's like I said, it's been slow going. My mind hasn't been in the right space lately. It's just been awful when you don't get support, when you don't get the feedback from readers. And it's no fault that, some of the readers don't want to talk to writers, because there's been so much going on between readers and writers. Writers lashing back at their critics, and the critics bashing the writers. It's strange to me how this has started to really fester, and the whole AI thing has gotten way out of control. Now anybody that's written a book, it's an automatically thought, oh, an AI wrote that, and then they start bashing the writer for using AI. The problem is that the AI can be used in certain ways, and then there's bad ways to do it. Usually you can tell. And now it seems like every person that ever gets a book wants to scan it through an anti-AI thing, and now you don't trust the writers at all anymore, and you don't trust the critics anymore, because some of the critics are actually AI. There's the trick, though, right? Because some of these guys that come on bashing your books are actually using AI to write the articles for them. And there you go. And then we're stuck in this whole cycle, this never-ending loop of AI crap. It's really become a witch hunt for a lot of writers, which is really hard. It started with the covers, and I get that. I get the cover thing. And it gets into the writing, and I get that. That, if you let a computer write your entire novel, how is that creative? You've typed in a few words. That's not even a novel. That prompt should be the Flash, the Flash story that you put in. You just take that prompt, put it there, and say these are my prompt stories. And that's what I told my my wife and kids. I said they're using the term prompt writer and prompt artist. And I want to hashtag that, because they're saying something about that. That's the new term, prompt writer and prompt artist. And I'm just like, see, I told you that was coming. I told you that in my videos that was going to be a thing. And I should be paid for every time anybody says that. Man, I should have trademarked that. But yeah, I mean, this is the era we're living in. I write stories because I have an imagination. And I don't give a rat's bum about whether or not you think it's original or not. It is original to me because I wrote it. And I know I wrote it. And I didn't have a computer write any of my books. Not one. I don't believe that that's the way to go about writing a book. You have to have some sort of imagination. You have to have that spirit of writing in you to do that. Some people treat this more like a commodity. Like, if I write 50 books, I'm going to make like tons of money. If that's your attitude, sorry to say to me, that's not writing. That's a goal. And the only goal you should be in writing, that you should be trying to create something creative. Now, if you're writing an autobiography, that's real. If you're writing nonfiction, that requires research and dedication. If you're trying to just write a story, like out of your mind, or something you thought was a good idea, and a lot of these people that do write just automatically think, oh, well, I'll use the computer, and the computer will write the story for me out of my general kind of ideas. No. You have to see that thing all the way through. I know there are creative classes to go through, all that stuff. But generally, I've had to deal with that stuff too. I've had to go through some creative ideas classes, but mainly because as a writer, I've learned things over the years. I've learned how to write fan fiction. When I first started, I was writing fan fiction. I had lots of input from other people that were sharing back to me, like, hey, that the way you were saying that needs to be rearranged, or the spelling's off. And you really have to turn back inward and learn how to self-edit. And I think that's a good thing for any writer. To let the computer do it all for you, it's such a catch-22 for that. I really think there are some benefits to AI and some things not. And you just have to... I know people get all miffed when they hear that there was some auto-correcting from AI. Man, that's been going on for some time now. Anytime you use a spell checker, that was an AI doing that. But sometimes AI can't pick up all the inflections, can't pick up all the things. You have to reread all that stuff and go through it and make sure it sounds right. You have to make it... You have to read your own story, because if it doesn't make sense to you, it won't make sense to the reader. And then that's when they start getting miffed. I've been accused of that, and I when my first stories came out, they weren't really well edited, and I apologize for my first book. And I learned, it was a big learning lesson for me, especially for me. It helped me to understand, okay, I can't just write the thing, put it out there. I have to reread, reanalyze, redo everything, and start again. And I do that. With all my books, I do that. And unfortunately, some things do slip through. There are some spelling errors, but there are spelling errors in professional novels as well. So to critics that go on about, well, your spelling's horrible. Have you read some of these books that have missed all the spelling? These are professionals that have had typos and whatever. Even editors. Editors scan through, sure, but they'll miss stuff too. They'll miss a way that the sentence should be structured. They'll miss some things that, aren't cohesive to the story. You can't just sit there and say that, you didn't get an editor. No, we had an editor. It's just that even editors can't be omnipotent to all this stuff, It's just you're human. And be glad that a human is doing that, and you catch some stuff that's a human error. Because if it sounded so perfect and AI, it would be the most boring layout. And I've seen it. I've seen the boring layout. It describes it beautifully, but there's no heart, there's no feeling. It's all grammatically correct. It's all structured well, but there's no human element to it. There's no identity to the story. So that's where we tend to suffer in a lot of these things. And that's why the AI isn't good for certain things. I think there's a lot of writers that take this the wrong way. A lot of writers tend to feel threatened by it. Don't feel threatened. Feel empowered that you, the writer, will have to do more to get that reader to get on board with you. I absolutely hate those that come on screaming onto other writers for using any kind of AI whatsoever. Yes, it's terrible. And yes, you can be a more creative person, or at least explain to them why you feel this way, but not in an just not being so bitter in the way you're saying it. Just explain and let them decide. Bashing them over the head about it will not make this any better, because then you'll see some blowback towards you. So I'm not for AI. I'm just trying to see the good in something. I just feel that we're suffering, the ones that can't get our voices seen, because a lot of these people push their books out and they're getting more publicity than some of us are getting in the smaller indie books. And I really, really hate seeing how this is all developing. It doesn't give anybody a voice, to be honest with you. I mean, I've seen great books get ignored. Mainly because, again, they don't have the money to pump up publicity, but the ones that get the most are the ones that are like in these little cliques of bloggers, writers, or blog writers, or, people that have constant YouTube channels or just constant social media presence. Great. That's helping you immensely. Fantastic. But a lot of us indie authors that can't get this voice, we're getting drowned out. I don't know what more I can do to get my books seen, to get my books heard. I put them out there, I get some reviews, and then it's just like it just dies right out. Because fantasy's killing it. Fantasy books are just rocketing right now. And I'm trying to get into fantasy. But you can tell that I'm not a big fantasy writer, unfortunately. But I am trying. I'm writing short stories to get my feet wet into that genre. But they get passed over because they're not full novels, and they're not the kind of fantasy novels most people like to read. So it makes it harder for you to understand. And I'm not one of these people that likes to get on the train of this fantasy momentum that, my characters have to have this to work. That's basic. I think the more you try to fit it to a pattern, the more it's going to become stagnant and die. But again, it's the way that the trend's going. Science fiction used to be really big in the 80s and 90s. And then fantasy exploded in the 2000s and just kept on going. I mean, it was big. Sure, it was big back in the day as well, but not as much as it is in this time. You've got a lot of fantasy shows on of late. They're helping produce that. So what more can I do? Like I said, I don't create this channel to critique or monetize. I mean, some people think that YouTube is nothing but monetization, that I just need to be on this channel 24/7 to make money, blah, 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 blah. But that's just advertising. I'm here to tell you about me as a writer. I write science fiction. I write fantasy. I'm trying to inform you of what I'm doing with my books. That's what this... And YouTube originally was just for people to get on and talk about stuff. Now it's an advertisement. Now I gotta sell myself like a commodity. But I have to, in order for me to make money on this channel, I have to keep cranking it out. Boom, ba boom, ba boom, ba boom, ba boom. Kids of this era get it. My son gets it. He's starting his channel. He's racking up a lot of views. More power to him. More so than me. Obviously, I'm boring. Obviously, I'm older. I don't have the showmanship. Even though they're trying to encourage me to do voice acting, I do mimic a lot of voices. I do some stuff. I have put up one of me being like Transformers, of Megatron and Optimus Prime. But I mean, I don't know what it is. They want me to be in voice acting, but I can't multitask. I can't read. I can't read the line and voice the line at the same time. My mind doesn't work that way. And I've tried to explain that to them, but they seem gung-ho on me doing that. But I don't know. I did have put on a flash fiction of which I've read to the audience, and I've done a prologue where I've read it. And the prologue was hard because it was hard to read the story and try to emote something in my voice because I'm still reading the story. Even though it is my own writing, I tend to read like that, so I try to do it in Service with a Smile, which is the short story, and it's online here, and you might find a link in my channel to that story. I might do another one just to see if I can get it done again. And flash fiction is probably more the route I'm going right now. I want to finish my space stories. Gosh, I wish I could get back on the ball on this thing. That's the problem with writing. Some days you feel like it, some days you don't. I know some writers are just constantly on there writing. Those that have series know that they can get back onto it. It's a familiar thing to go on to. They've got the characters, they got all that ready. Me, I tend to write one-offs so many times. Mainly because I think my mind gets bored and I need to keep trying something different. But then my mind gets bored again about halfway through and I'm on to the next story. Even though I'm trying to train myself to get back on to that dang story and finish out that story, will you? Which is why novellas used to work for me so well, because I would get them done and they were done. Novels take longer. It's a longer process. Like Professor Darkham's Shadows, The Burning Fire Rises. That was hard for me to just get to that point of the novel being halfway completed. And I still have to do the other half of that story, because I did part 1 as a novel, and I have to do part 2 of the novel, because I have to get that out. I have to finish that, or my mind will just not let me rest. So I've written some of that, part 2. Again, the disappointment, the lack of feedback hurts a writer's mind. It really does. But I chip away at it. I take it one chapter at a time. I try to get onto ones that interest me at the time and get back onto it. It's a slow, painful thing. And the more I fret about it, the more I think, oh, I'm not making money, the book's not selling, blah, 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 blah. The more I keep trying to put pressure on myself to get this done because I think I have to make this quota, the more I won't enjoy it. Because to me, that's more of a chore and not like a creative process. I want to enjoy writing this book. I enjoyed writing all of my books up to a point. When it starts becoming like you see all these books being cranked out by other writers, you feel like you're being left behind. Like you said, oh my gosh, like, what am I going to do? Like, everybody's like surpassing me. I haven't got much longer to live. That's how I feel. I feel like, oh my God, if I don't get this done, I'll be dead and all these stories will be incomplete and, nobody will know who I am, blah. But I'm like, you know what? You just got to write what you write. Get it done when you can get it done. So I will get things done when I get things done. For now, I have enough books out there that people can read and get to know me and get to know my writing and my characters and enjoy it. I wish more people spread the word, but it's getting to a point where it's hard to be critical. It's hard to be unbiased. It is such a terrible time for writers right now. It's so judgmental. There's so much just hatred going around the world. It's just mind-boggling to me. How we got to this point, I don't know. I feel like I'm in a different, friggin' universe. Before the 2000s hit, we were doing great, I thought. And then as soon as that, it's like the universe flipped and we're all in this negative space. I don't know what to say. I think social media has actually done more harm than good. I know it was meant as a good thing, but there's always people to abuse new technologies, new things that come up. It just seems to be the way of humanity. We have a good idea, but there's always somebody there to abuse that idea for their own benefit. And it's a sad, sad state. So that's where I'm at. This is more of an update. This is more of another rant, if you will. I might as well just call these rants, not discussions, because I'm not discussing anything. I'm just ranting at this point. I know that nobody comes on this channel to hear me babble on, but hey, this is my channel. This is what I do. I put on what I think might be interesting, or it's just me doing a video vlog of what I'm thinking of the time. I have gotten down before. I have had moments of terribleness, that I've had thoughts before, but not recently. I think I just need to respin this so that it won't hurt me, that it won't take me to that dark place again. The point I'm making is that I will write because I want to write, not to force myself to make money, because that will only make you feel miserable. Don't write like you want to keep making money. The book writing is not going to make you rich and famous, not unless you're some sort of marketing person that has all these great ideas. But at the same time, you need to enjoy this process. And if you feel like you're just cranking out books for the sake of cranking out books, you're going to burn out real fast. Real fast. I'm not burnt out. I'm just, I have to take time for me. And I have to think about things before I start writing them. And I think instead of me trying to hurry up the process, I need to let it come naturally. Because if I try to pump out the books faster than anybody, then they really will think it's an AI writing all this stuff, because I'm cranking it out way too fast. Book after book after book. Like one right after the other. 1 month, 2 weeks. Like every 2 weeks there's a new book. Well, that you definitely have to figure something's up with that. So for the time being, I am taking it as it comes. I have a book out when I have a book out. And I'm not going to do these pre-order book things again, because they don't work. I've tried. Unless you're like a major star, your book's not going to get, forget it. It's not going to happen. Unless your book's well known, like Wistful Ascending. I don't think it's going to, yeah. Like, I'm not at that level yet. If I keep writing off one-offs, then of course people aren't going to know who I am. And I just have to live with that. I do. I have to live with the reactions I get. Because I don't write this to crank out book after book after book. I crank this out because I want to bring you a story that I took time to think about and create. And I want to share that with you, because I want to share stories with you. My mind comes up with stuff, and I want to share my stories with you. And that's all I ever wanted to do. I only wanted to share stories with people. As a kid, I had billions of ideas, billions of stories, imagination stories. I wanted to share with the world so badly. Just because I thought it was a great story, and I wanted everybody to enjoy what I thought up. And that's all any writer wants to do. Any creative writer. So I will write what I will write. And I'm not going to sit here and fret anymore about, oh my God, my book didn't make the top 100. Or, oh my God, I'm not making any money this month. It'll make money if it makes money. I really can't sit here and beg so many times for anybody to go read my book. My books are out there. I advertise online when I can advertise online by myself, because, again, money's tight. Writers don't make that much. Really, we don't. You think we do, but we don't. Not unless we have a major deal with a company or a studio. Odds are that's not the case a lot of times. And unless you're a really successful romance novelist, you're not making the money. So I will enjoy making my books as much as I can. If they're incomplete, they're incomplete. But I'm trying not to make them incomplete. I'm trying to actually get them out there. I've entered like up to 4 contests for the science fiction contests 4 times. I've entered one in SPIFBO, which is amazing to me that I even got in. So I have to be proud of that fact. I have to be proud of the fact that I got into SPIFBO. I got into like 4 of the science fiction ones. And I've twice gotten into the short story contests as a speculation fiction. So for that, I'm grateful. I'll leave it there.